Hello children. So let us continue with the separation techniques in this fourth lecture. So this is class 9 chapter 2 lecture 4. Okay, and in this we'll study about the separation of various components of air. So air, as you know, it is a mixture of gases, dust particles and moisture. So how do we separate these components of air? This can be done by fractional distillation, and this is the experimental setup. This is where the components of air is separated. So let us study about it. First of all, here the air is passed through the filter. Okay, this is passed through the filter where the dust particles are separated. First and foremost, the dust particles are separated. It goes into a chamber where there is a lot of high pressure applied on air, and as a result air is compressed, and when the air is compressed it becomes hot. So the hot air now goes to the next chamber where the air is further cooled by the cold water. You can see the cold water going into this and the hot water is coming out of it. Okay, what kind of water is coming out? Hot. Why? Because the hot air has lost heat. Okay, and the hot air has now got converted into cold compressed air. Now this cold compressed air passes through a filter. Here the separator or the filter, it filters the dry ice. As you know it very well, as the air cools down, by the time it reaches over here, the temperature is minus 78 degrees Celsius, and at this temperature the carbon dioxide gets converted into dry ice or solid ice. So you can solid carbon dioxide. So once dry ice is separated, the air which is moving out of the separator now consists of only nitrogen, argon and oxygen. So this air has now been converted. At this temperature the air gets converted into the liquid air, and it moves out through a small jet. Okay, so it expands all of a sudden from a small jet, and this process is known as effusion that you have studied about. And as air expands suddenly through a small pore, the temperature of the air further falls down and the temperature becomes around minus 200 degrees Celsius. So the mixture of air is very cold now, and it has got converted into liquid air. Now this is the chamber where fractional distillation is done. So what do? We heat the air slowly. So as we heat the air, minus 200 degrees Celsius gets converted first to minus 196 degrees Celsius, and the liquid nitrogen gets converted into the gaseous nitrogen. It starts boiling and it gets converted into the gaseous nitrogen, and nitrogen gas is collected first and foremost, followed by, as we further increase the temperature at minus 186 degrees Celsius, the liquid argon starts boiling and it gets converted into the gaseous form, and it is collected. You can see it in the second part of the chamber, and what we are left with, it is only liquid oxygen. So the liquid oxygen can be separated now. So you can see the liquid oxygen has separated. We have separated out liquid oxygen. Now I have made a column showing the boiling point of the liquid components of the air. So you can see oxygen gas, the boiling point of liquid oxygen is minus 183 degrees Celsius. That of liquid argon is minus 186 degrees Celsius, and that of boiling point of liquid nitrogen gas is minus 196 degrees Celsius. So you have to remember it very carefully that the moment the mixture of gases reaches the fractional distillation column, the temperature is minus 200 degrees Celsius, and when we start heating it, so it will first go to minus 198, minus 196 and so on. So as a result, the various components will start boiling in the increasing order of their boiling points, and as a result we can separate the various components. Now you can see the question given in the NCERT is that which gas forms liquid first. when we start cooling the gas, which gas is the one which gets converted into the liquid first? Naturally, the gas whose boiling point is highest will get converted into the liquid first. So oxygen gas has the highest boiling point of minus 183 degrees Celsius. So oxygen gets converted into the liquid first, followed by argon and then nitrogen. Now moving into the water purification system, which is used in our water works or by municipal corporations. This is the setup. How does it work? This is the reservoir which acts as a source of water, and this reservoir can be something like dam or river, from where the water goes into the sedimentation tank. In the sedimentation tank, the heavy impurities, they settle down, okay, and only the clear water goes to the next loading tank. In this loading tank, the water contains fine clay and sand particles which have not settled down in the sedimentation tank. So what is done? Some chemical like alum or some other chemical can be added to the water here. So the alum, what does it do? It converts, it makes the aggregate of many fine clay particles, or it groups many fine clay particles. They stick to each other and become heavy, and they settle down in the loading tank. This is known as loading. Okay, loading of clay particles takes place. So now the clear water goes into the filtration tank. You can see in the filtration tank has 3 layers. The first layer is made up of fine sand particles, followed by small gravel, and then big stones are there. So the water now seeps into these 3 layers, and the clear water now moves into the last tank, which is known as chlorination tank. In the chlorination tank, the microbes are killed, and as a result, with the help of chlorine or the bleaching powder, the microbes can be killed, and now the water is fit for the supply to various homes. So these are the processes which take place during the water purification system. Okay, here you can see there are how many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and now after the 5 steps, the water is fit for human consumption or to be supplied to the home. Fine. So we have studied about impure substances. Now let us study about the pure substances. Pure substances, as you know, they are made up of same type of particles, and they can be classified into elements and compounds. So what are elements? Elements are the substances which are made up of only one type of atom. Anything in this world can be, when it is broken, when we keep on breaking it, and finally we get something what is known as element. Okay, for example, water, if it is decomposed, it forms hydrogen and oxygen gases. When this hydrogen and oxygen gases are obtained, they are nothing else but elements. So elements can be categorized. Example of elements are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, copper, gold, etc. And they can be classified into metals, non-metals and metalloids. So what are metals? Metals are usually hard solids, and they have a shine. When we cut a metal with a very sharp edge tool like knife, the edges of a metal, they are very shiny. They have a shine, and they are known, we say that they have a luster. There also the metals are ductile. And what is the meaning of ductile? That means when we pull a metal, it gets converted into a thin wire. So this ability to be pulled into thin wires is known as ductility. Metals like, for example, aluminum, gold, they can also be beaten into very thin sheets, and this property is known as malleability. So what is malleability? Malleability is a property by which a metal can be broken into very thin sheet. Metals are sonorous. Sonorous means when we hit a metal with a hammer, we get a clink sound. Okay, and that is why these metals are used for making bells. Fine. So because they are sonorous, they are used for making bells. They are also good conductors of heat and electricity. most of the metals, all the metals are good conductors of heat and electricity except lead. Lead is a poor conductor of heat. Metals are usually silvery gray in color, or they are yellow or brown in color. Fine. So these are the characteristics of metal. Now let us study about some examples of metals. The examples of metals are sodium, potassium, iron. You can see most of the metals are, all the metals are solid except mercury. Mercury is the only metal which is liquid in nature. Next is lithium. Lithium is the lightest metal, remember that. And there is one more metal which is known as gallium. This metal has a very low melting point. So when you keep this metal in your palm, it melts. It melts at the body temperature. Okay. Lead, as I had said earlier, is a bad conductor of heat. Now when we talk about the chemical nature of metals, metals are electropositive in nature. What does it mean? It means that the metals have the ability to lose electron. Whenever they react, they lose electrons. Okay. And that is why we say that metals are electropositive in nature. What about non-metals? Non-metals are just opposite of the metals. They are usually soft solids or gases. They don't have a shine or luster. They are not at all ductile. They are non-malleable. They cannot be drawn into sheets, or they cannot be drawn into wires or beaten into sheets. They do not conduct heat or electricity, with graphite as an exception. Graphite is an exception. It is a non-metal, but yes, it is a good conductor of electricity. Why does it conduct electricity? That we shall study in class 10th. They usually have a dull appearance and they are very good electron acceptors. These metals were electron donors. They used to give away electrons, whereas non-metals are electron acceptors. So they are said to be electronegative in nature. Okay, when they are accepting a electron, they get negatively charged. Now some examples of non-metals, like I said non-metals are usually soft solids or gases. So gases like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, chlorine, argon, etc. And they are soft solids like sulfur, phosphorus, graphite, silicon, etc. But diamond is also a non-metal. Diamond is the hardest naturally occurring non-metal. Okay, element. It is a non-metal and element as well. And the only liquid non-metal is bromine. Remember that? Bromine is the only liquid non-metal. Now we'll study about metalloids. So come, let us study about metalloids. Metalloid is a third category of elements which have the properties both of metals and non-metals. Some of the properties of metalloids are like that of metals, whereas other properties are like that of non-metals. So the metalloids are 7 in number, and the examples are boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium and polonium. Now coming to the second category of pure substances, that is compounds. Compounds are formed when elements combine in a fixed proportion by mass. Remember, when I say combine, that means they are not physically mixing with each other. When the elements react with each other in a fixed proportion by mass, they form a compound. Example, you can see I have taken here, you can see 2 grams of hydrogen gas is reacting with 16 grams of oxygen gas in the presence of electric sparks. Okay, in the presence of electricity, it forms 18 grams of water. So what is the mass ratio? The mass ratio is 2 grams is to 16 grams. That means the simplest ratio is 1:8. And atomic ratio is entirely different from the mass ratio. What is the atomic ratio? 2 atoms of hydrogen is combining with 1 atom of oxygen. So 2 hydrogen is to 1 oxygen. The second example is that of carbon dioxide. You can see 12 gram of carbon is reacting with 32 grams of oxygen. Okay, and this leads to the formation of 44 grams of carbon dioxide. So whenever we talk about the mass ratio, you should consider mass. So the mass ratio is 12 gram is to 32 gram, and the simplest ratio is 3 is to 8. But the atomic ratio is 1 atom of carbon is combining with 2 atom of oxygen, that is 1 is to 2. Okay. Now what are the characteristics of a compound? In a compound there are 2 or more elements which combine in a fixed ratio by mass. And these elements cannot be separated physically. We cannot just remove them from one another. We have to carry out chemical reactions to separate the components of a compound. The properties of the elements which make up a compound are entirely different from the properties of the compound. For example, here you can see hydrogen is a gas, oxygen is a gas, but water which is formed is a liquid. So the property has changed completely. Here also I have shown oxygen and hydrogen, both of them are gases, and when they form water, water is liquid. So the property has changed entirely. The fourth important characteristic is that some form of energy is used. It is whenever a compound is formed by the addition of the elements, some form of energy is always involved. It is either given out or it is taken in. For example, here you can see when hydrogen is reacting with oxygen, electricity, it is reacting in the presence of electricity, or electricity is absorbed. Similarly, I have taken one more example which is there in your syllabus. When iron fillings is reacting with sulfur, how does it react? It is reacting in the presence of heat. That means we have to heat both the mixtures. It forms iron sulfide. FeS is the formula. The name is iron sulfide. It is a black solid. You can see the iron fillings are grey fillings. Okay, they are like fine powder, and sulfur is a yellow powder. Here the iron fillings are attracted by the magnet. But what about iron sulfide, which is a compound? It is not attracted by the magnet. Why? Because the property of iron has changed completely after the reaction. Similarly, yellow sulfur powder, it dissolves in carbon disulfide. Carbon disulfide is a non-polar or organic solvent which dissolves sulfur powder. But if we try to dissolve the FeS, iron sulfide, in carbon disulfide, it is seen that carbon disulfide does not dissolve FeS. So the properties of the constituent elements have changed completely after the formation of the compound. Now, since we were talking about some chemical changes, now let us study about what is a physical change and a chemical change. What is the difference between the two? Physical change is the one where no new substance is formed. For example, melting of ice. Whenever we are melting ice, the solid form of water is getting converted into the liquid form of water. So the water remains there, okay, intact. The water, there is no new substance formed, so we say it is a physical change. Physical change is also reversible. That means ice which has melted and formed water, I can once again convert the liquid water to ice. How can we convert it? By cooling it. If we put the liquid water in the refrigerator, it will get converted back into the ice form. So this is a reversible. The physical changes are reversible. Third, no energy is exchanged. Remember, whatever the amount of heat is, suppose I am converting solid ice to water, I am adding some heat. Okay. And same amount of heat can be removed. If I want to convert the liquid water to solid ice, I will remove same amount of heat. Okay. So net exchange heat is same. So no change in heat quantity is taking place over there. Whatever heat I have added, same amount of heat I have removed. On the contrary, when we go to a chemical change, in a chemical change, always a new substance is formed. I had taken the example of carbon, which is getting converted to carbon dioxide. Carbon is a black solid. Any form of carbon is usually black in color. For example, coal. Okay, when we burn it in the presence of oxygen, it is forming carbon dioxide, which is gaseous and colorless as well. So the solid, black solid has been converted into the colorless gas carbon dioxide. So a completely new substance is formed. Can we again change back the carbon dioxide to carbon very easily? No, we cannot. It is irreversible. Remember, chemical change is irreversible. So third criteria, that energy exchange is involved. So that means when we are burning carbon or coal, in the presence of oxygen, some amount of heat is given out. Can we convert carbon dioxide by adding the same amount of heat to it? Can I convert carbon dioxide back to coal? No, we cannot convert back to coal because, as you know, it is irreversible. So these are the differences between the physical and chemical changes. Whenever we are talking about a change, we should always see the first criteria, that is whether a new substance is formed or not. Now let me take some examples of physical change and chemical change and explain it to you. For example, cutting down of trees. Cutting down of trees, I say it is a chemical change, not a, I say it is a physical change, sorry children, not a chemical change. Why? Because whenever we are, though it's true that once the tree is cut down, it is an irreversible change. But is the first criteria satisfied? When a tree is cut down, are we making something new? Is the chemical composition of the substance changed? No, the chemical composition of a substance has not changed. So cutting down of tree is a physical change, not a chemical change. Second, suppose I say burning of candle. Burning of candle, whenever we are burning of candle is a both physical and chemical change. Why? Melting of, whenever we burn a candle, the wax is melting. So melting of wax is a physical change. Remember, melting of wax is a physical change. Why? Because the solid wax has been converted to the liquid form. But burning of wax is a, burning of wax is a chemical change. Why? Because when the wax is burning, it is getting converted into carbon dioxide. So there are many examples, as you can see. For example, dissolution of sugar. Dissolution of sugar, it is a physical change. Okay, why it is a physical change? Because the chemical property of the sugar has not changed. We can get back the sugar by simply evaporating the water. Okay, so there are many examples. Boiling of egg. Boiling of egg is a chemical change. Why? Because once you have boiled the egg, the liquid egg forms a hard boiled egg, and the chemical composition of the egg has changed completely. Can we get back the liquid form? No, we cannot get back the liquid form. So it's an example of chemical change. So there are many examples. With the help of various examples, I think you'll be able to understand the concept better. Okay children, so this was all about your chapter 2 of class 9. I think I will be able to, this video of mine will be of some help at least. Okay, it will help in clearing your understanding about the topic. Okay, thank you children. Till we meet, till we meet next time. Okay, till then keep studying, be happy and healthy. Thank you. Bye bye.